Thanks for downloading a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online. Now stay tuned for your 3CR podcast.
Sabah al-Khair, good morning dear listeners. You're listening to Radio 3CR on 855 AM and Palestine Remembered with Robert Martin, Nasser Mashni and Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Palestine Remembered is Australia's only English-language radio program that is totally dedicated to Palestine. We'd like to welcome those listening on 855 and those that will join us on podcast at 3cr.org.au.
Thanks for joining us. Stay with us and enjoy the episode.
Good morning, Nasser.
Morning, Yusuf. How are you doing? We have to apologise to our listeners that we're on at 9 o'clock and not 9:30. So
yes.
Obviously, with Invasion Day and 3CR wanting to take a live feed in from Canberra, we've moved our time slot. So the very best
Happily
of luck.
Also giving our time slot to the elderly of the Aboriginal voices.
Absolutely.
And we fully endorse their plight for equality and justice.
Absolutely.
And the similarities between the Palestinian and the Aboriginal cause. This is a very rich topic we have spoken about in past episodes, and we will definitely revisit in future episode. But for today, we'll start with a very tragic news, Nasser.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you couldn't be living in Melbourne or Australia and not know about the tragedy that happened last week with our dear sister Aya from Palestine, from
Baq al-Gharbiyya.
Yeah, and what happened to her, and we extend our condolences to her family. You know, she's been repatriated now to her family's village and buried. And whilst we don't want to politicise the event at all,
no,
the reality is the media was very, very poor in its reporting of Aya. It denied her and stripped her of her essence of the fact that she was Palestinian. She was reported as an Israeli student. An Israeli Arab. Never once was she noted as a Palestinian. It was only yesterday, Wednesday or Thursday, the Age actually reported at the burial that she was a Palestinian from Israel. So,
and also I noticed that myself and many of my friends on social media have picked on this issue straight away because while we do not, like you said, Nasser, want to politicize the issue because Aya was targeted because she was a woman.
Absolutely.
And any other woman in her circumstances on that particular night
Correct.
would have been attacked, yani. Having said that, some said that to say that she is an Israeli passport holder of Palestinian origin is not necessarily a political statement, but an identity statement.
And where identity is so very important, so very important. I mean, we have to realize that Aya's ancestors, millennia, were born in Palestine. For her to fulfill her dreams, to fulfill her desires for a full life and experience, etc., she had to leave that country. She cannot enjoy the
equal opportunities,
the economic, educational, employment opportunities, because she celebrates God on Friday.
That's the wrong day.
As somebody who celebrates God on a Saturday. And so she had to leave the birthplace of her thousands of ancestors.
Let me put here, if you allow me to be the voice of or the devil advocate, because I receive emails from listeners who disagree with this and say that Palestinian Israelis do go to universities and also work in universities. Now, I want to hear from you, Nasser, but before that, I want to say that, yes, they might be allowed to study in Israeli universities, But in terms of the number of opportunities available after graduation, is absolutely disproportionate to the percentage of Palestinians in Israel. So if their percentage is 20-something%, the opportunities is nothing more than 5%.
Absolutely.
In its best cases.
In its best cases. In the first instance, the conscription is mandatory for all Jewish people. So it's year 12, the boys do 3 years, the girls do 2 years. Now, when you're filling in your CV, you're sending out your
resume for employment.
There's a gap if you're an Arab. Even if you have a Jewish sounding name and your surname isn't Abdul Fattah or something.
Or Yusuf Ahmed al-Rimawi.
Ahmed al-Rimawi. Or Robert Ahmed
Martinez.
Yeah. You'll have a gap in your resume. And this immediately is an identifier to the employer that you're not a Jew. You don't celebrate God on Saturday. Now, the talk of Arabs and the equality and the democracy that is Israel, when they talk about Arabs, they're not talking about the overwhelming majority of Arabs, the Muslims and the Christians. What they're talking about is the Druze.
And some of the Bedouins.
And some Bedouins. And the Druze, they've been in protesting since last year when the Israel finally enshrined apartheid into their whatever constitution they call that they have by enacting the nation-state law. The Druze said, well, hold on a second. We fought with you in 47, 48, 56, 67, 73.
And nevertheless.
And you send us undercover because we speak Arabic and we look like Arabs and everything. And now you've actually finally said that we're not here. And
they send them as espionage to Egypt. And we know the case of Azzam, the Israeli spy in Egypt who was imprisoned for years and released for, that's another story. But he was a Druze.
Of course.
Because he is an Arab.
So back to Aya, may God's mercy be upon her soul. The reality of a Palestinian death in diaspora, in the tragic case that was Aya's, is that her identity was denied. And as Palestinians, the only thing we have is the belief and understanding of who we are and that identity that the world has continued to conspire to deny us. And we won't be Israelis. We will not be Israeli Arabs. We are Palestinian.
Absolutely. And also I want to give credit to the vast majority of Australians who took the streets. They went for the vigil night on Friday. And not Saturday. Yesterday, the Friday before, and Saturday. There were hundreds, maybe nearly 1,000 ordinary Australians who just took the pain of losing another innocent life for another predator and shared their sorrow with the father who was there and the other.
Well, we know how thankful he was for the outpouring of support that he received for his passing. We can't thank Melbourne and Australia enough. And in fact, the only good thing I'll ever say about Scott Morrison, I believe, was I read a copy of the letter that he sent to the ambassador, the Australian ambassador into Israel, that was read at Aya's funeral. And it was a beautiful letter. At no point did he acknowledge he was Palestinian.
Sincere.
It was a sincere offer of condolence. And interestingly, Yusuf, as we know, whilst the entire joint list, the Palestinian representatives within the Knesset were there at the funeral, and Scott Morrison sent the Australian ambassador with a letter. There was not one member of the state.
And this tells you that Israel, even in time of this is a human tragedy, still does not see the victims of rape and the victim of murder as equal.
Even in her death, she wasn't.
Even in her death, she was not equal. And so maybe we will end this, Nasser, by repeating our prayers and sincere condolences to Aya's family, Aya Maasarwe, and to the people of Baq al-Gharbiyya and to the people of Australia who share the sorrow. And before I leave this, speaking of her Arabic and Palestinian identity, Aya has a meaning in Arabic. Her name is the Arabic word for Quranic verse or divine sign. So even her name has meanings in her own language. Anyway, we will come back to maybe more on the Palestinians of Israel in future episode, and maybe by interviews or elsewhere. But we do have another.
We should just finish before we close that topic totally, Yusuf. We should just say that the fact that she was Palestinian is personal to us, but male violence against women is a scourge. The reality is we have more than one woman is killed a week in Australia in domestic violence. Women are overwhelmingly, disproportionately represented in murders by partners for crazy reasons, and that is unacceptable. Violence against anyone is unacceptable, but particularly family violence, over and above which, and that's something that it's an epidemic. I mean, it's something that, we really, as a culture, as a society, it's sick. So, something like 70 women last year were killed.
That's 70 too many.
Absolutely.
So we hope that Aya's memory and Aya's legacy and Aya's soul will be the light in this darkness and will change this into something much better.
Inshallah. Moving along, Yusuf, we know that the Benjamin Netanyahu has called for elections in April. 9th of April. And one of the, a couple of things we've got to talk about, but a couple of, a new party, Benny Gantz, the former Israeli army chief, is, bragging about how effective he was as a general in Gaza, the Israeli Resilience Party. We'll get to that. But first, and most disturbingly for Palestinians, is a member of the ruling Likud party. This is Benjamin Netanyahu's party. Benjamin Netanyahu that Malcolm Turnbull met with and said, "We're like you." Benjamin Netanyahu that Malcolm Turnbull went to Beersheba and commemorated the 100th.
And Bill Shorten.
And Bill Shorten commemorated the 100th anniversary of the charge of the Light Horse Brigade. The Likud party, Minister Yaron Mazuz, this guy has employed Elor Azaria. Now, that name might be familiar to our listeners, but just before I remind everybody who Elor Azaria is, Mazuz said that Azaria is intelligent and diligent and has been recorded with him for his
electoral campaign.
A video, that he's posted on Facebook. Now, Azaria was the soldier who, in Hebron in March of 2016, took 4 steps and walked up to Abdel Fattah al-Sharif, who had already been shot, was immobile and, in Israeli terms, neutralized.
And posed zero threat.
Zero threat. He was lying on the ground, motionless. Now, Azaria cocked his M16 rifle, took 4.5 steps, a 5th step, and put his gun to Abdel Fattah's head and blew his brains out. And the video is on YouTube. It's absolutely shocking.
So we're talking about a murder or at least extrajudicial execution.
Well, and all of that. It's absolutely, I think it's cold-blooded murder. Now, of course, in the democracy of the Middle East, the only democracy in the Middle East, we would expect the immediate full weight of the Israeli court system to immediately hold this human to account. I don't want to call him a human because he equates him to you and I, and to Abdel Fattah, who he
the
murdered.
victim.
The full weight of the Israeli military of the Israeli courts was put down onto Azaria. He received a 18-month term. He got 12 months of probation, and he was released after serving only 9 months.
During which he probably had visited his family several times.
Weekend releases, etc. And we must remember that Ahad Tamimi, as a 16-year-old girl, served 8 months for slapping a soldier.
In her property.
On her own land, in her own home.
Yeah.
An occupation soldier, no less.
Equipped with guns and military uniform.
Flak jackets, helmets, the full kit and caboodle. Ahad, the lioness, received 8 months. This guy did 9 months for putting a gun to a guy who was probably not going to make it anyway. And we don't condone the violence, but Abdel Fattah had been involved in an operation against an occupation soldier and already been, in quote marks, neutralized. He posed zero threat.
This person was mentioned to me in another interview in Arabic language by the mother of Shadi Farahat. Shadi was 12. in Jerusalem because a settler overheard him trying to do a plot against another settler. So just for not doing anything, for plotting,
or allegedly,
to do harm to one of the illegal settlers of Jerusalem. And he was taken at the age of 12 and was sentenced to 3 years in jail, which he served fully. He left when he was 15 and something year old now.
Mm-hmm.
So he was mentioned, this man, this soldier, to me by Shadi's mother. She said that when I was at the courtroom, in his court there was the man who killed Abdel Fattah. And you could see from the security to the judge to the people to the lawyers the double standards in the way they deal with a child who didn't do anything because he was an Arab, versus a murderer who did kill someone, neutralized video evidence, but nevertheless he received the very lenient sentence.
And a further sign of just how fascist the Israeli Knesset is becoming. A former General Benny Gantz, this guy visited Australia a few years ago. He was the former Israeli army chief. He's running video campaigns as to why he should be elected, why he wants to replace Benjamin Netanyahu as the Prime Minister of Israel. His party is called the Israel Resilience Party. And in one of his videos, he so excited by saying, "Vote for me because I've turned parts of Gaza have been returned to the Stone Ages."
So that's the criteria.
Yeah, this is his
the
campaign
selection
video.
criteria.
Because more jobs, public transport, going to build a tunnel. Gantz's Resilience Party says, "We've returned Gaza to the Stone Ages. 6,231 targets destroyed. 1,364 terrorists have been killed. 3.5 years of quiet." These are the slogans.
Do you know what's sad? Not just the slogan, that these slogans do sell very well in elections.
Absolutely. And it ends with, his campaign ends with, "Only the strong win." And his actual campaign slogan, like America, "Make America Great Again," the Trump, his one is, "Israel before everything." And when we talk about those numbers, he talked about 1,364 terrorists being killed. The UN Human Rights Council issued an independent report, said there was 2,251 Palestinians killed, 1,462 of them were civilians, 551 of them were children. More than 11,000 Palestinians were injured, 3,540 of them were women, 3,436 children, with over 10% of them suffering permanent disabilities. I mean, this guy should be going straight to The Hague as a war criminal.
To say the least.
He's actually saying, "Vote for me because," not "I'm going to build better roads," not "I've got a plan for the economy," not more schools, better hospitals.
But because I killed more Palestinians.
Look how much blood I've got on my hands. And that wins votes in Israel.
Now, Nasser, during this circus of they compete who did more damage to the Palestinians and who killed more babies, during this, now it makes us think that, what's the point of us following the details of the Israeli elections if even the moderate, between brackets, are as ruthless? And I'm putting forward a question sent to me by maybe listeners, Palestinian listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you think, or how would you respond to this question, Nasser?
Well, Yusuf, as Palestinians, as victims of Zionism, we know just how bad Israel has been, is, what it historically. We have been at the brunt end of it. Now, the reality is the world is starting to see it. It's becoming less and less easy to be Israel's friend. But, I mean, you're still going to get, the Corey Bernardi types and the really far right wing types, whether they be in Australia, and the rest of the West. But increasingly, and we saw this with the Labor Party resolution last year, recognising Palestine the next time they're elected, it's becoming harder and harder to be Israel's friend, to the point where we now have in the United States Congress 2 senators who openly support
pro-Palestinian,
but openly support the boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign, the BDS. we have now an article that was published in the New York Times, and this is arguably one of the best pieces I've read on a
on New York Times.
In the New York Times, who's come out. Yeah, and I say come out because, and she talks about it. Her name is Michelle Alexander. She's a professor. She talks about how hard it is to support Palestine for fear of the smear of anti-Semitism, for fear of your career, for fear of lack of funding, for fear of all of those things. But the reality of her humanity demands that she cannot have two things a duplicitous decision. She has to either be in support of all peoples, regardless of, or she cannot. She cannot continue to be silent on Palestine. And the article was called "Time to Break the Silence on Palestine." And it is a phenomenal piece.
We should put it on our podcast as well. We'll put a link to it.
We'll put a link to it. Now, when you talk about that, you talk about two senators in the United States Congress. We talk about Benjamin Netanyahu now. He's making friends with, open fascists. The new president of Brazil. With Korban in Hungary. These are people
who are fascists and proud.
Yeah, and increasingly that's where Israel's having to go to get legitimacy, because it's becoming harder. I mean, he's still going to have Tony Abbott's ear. He's still going to have that sort of person. Still going to be, but increasingly these sorts of fascists. When Benny Gantz runs his electoral campaign and says, 6,231 targets destroyed, 1,364 terrorists killed, 3.5 years of quiet, only the strong win, Israel before everything. I mean, this is,
the irony, Israel before everything, is not just a slogan for the Israeli election, but it is the reality in the United States. Because Israel before even everything in America.
We saw that
you can't be loyal to Israel and get away with your job as a senator or lawmaker, even if you are not good to your own constituency.
Well, the very first piece of legislation that was coming into the new House, it's been knocked on the head twice now, the very first piece of legislation that was going to be voted on...
To incriminate.
Is to incriminate the BDS movement and to make it illegal to boycott, divest, or...
To boycott a foreign country.
Boycott a foreign country. I mean, this is against, the founding principles of the United States Constitution of free speech.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they've shut down the government now for... It must be 35 days now. It hasn't stopped with the government shut down Donald Trump engineering a coup in Venezuela. This is, he served hamburgers to staff.
The candlelight dinner.
With hamburgers.
So presidential.
I mean, this is crazy. We're in a twilight zone. Now,
also supporting Israel, yes, Israel might be able to make breakthroughs within countries like Brazil and, wherever fascists are, and even some of the Arab countries, but it comes with a price. And even the agricultural minister of Brazil warned her own president that there will be a price. And the good thing is that 5 of the major meat suppliers to the Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries are banned now from entering the market. From Brazil, in protest of the openness of the Brazilian moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So there will be a price, even from Saudi Arabia. So 5 of them, I said it in Arabic. I wasn't expecting something, and I said that the biggest chicken outlet in Saudi Arabia is called Al Baik Restaurant, and they purely import from Brazil. And they said, the best thing we can do, I said to my friends in Saudi Arabia, if we really want to support BDS, stop going to Al Baik until Al Baik finds another supplier.
Yeah.
But then it came from much faster than I expected, and no more chicken is coming from Brazil now to Saudi Arabia.
Fantastic.
So it comes with a price, and hopefully they will realize that you either be at the right side of or the right moral side of history, or support Israel.
Well, this is true.
Simple.
It's simple. And increasingly, Yusuf, we're seeing more and more Jewish people move away from Zionism. The Jewish Voice for Peace in the United States, which is a very progressive Jewish movement, they've released their manifesto on why they are anti-Zionist.
And also here we have the Jews Against Occupation. and AJ Diaz is doing great work.
Yeah.
And in fact, I remember watching a lecture in 2013 by one of the Hasbara masterminds who visited Norway to train some of the Norwegian future pro-Israeli advocates. And he said one of the top 10 strategic threats that Israel is facing in the next 10 years or more, one of them is the shift within the American Jewry.
Yeah.
So it's no longer conditional.
No. It's where
that you are a Jew and therefore you are a supporter of Israel.
And this is the conflation of the two. The concept that Israel is Judaism, that Israel is all Jews, is the trick.
The monopolistic representation of the religion and the religion holders around the world.
Yeah, and this conflation then creates the opportunity to link all of the awful persecution that the Jews have suffered, whether it be the Spanish Inquisition, the Crusades, the pogroms,
East Europe,
culminating in the Holocaust. When that conflation happens, it then becomes very easy for Zionists to target anybody as anti-Semitic. And the reality is that if you went back before Theodor Herzl, that there were Jews in Palestine.
Absolutely, indigenous Jews, Palestinians like us.
Yeah,
and
they were Palestinian,
and more in Iraq, and more in Morocco more in Tunis, and even in Bahrain. Yeah.
So the concept that anti-Semitism is an Arab disease is wrong. Anti-Semitism is a Western disease. It's a European disease. They've exported it.
Indeed.
It's not something that we invented.
So there will be a price for any country that is openly supportive of Israel at the expense of human rights, especially with the continuation of violations in the 12 years of siege in Gaza and the maybe 52 years now of occupation and the looting of more resources. Yep. The last was a property for Yasser Arafat in Jerusalem. Only yesterday, Israel confiscated a property that literally belongs to the family of Yasser Arafat in Jerusalem. They just decided to confiscate.
Well, they can do that. I mean, we saw an eviction that went through. The Israeli Supreme Court upheld an eviction of some Palestinians. These Palestinians were original refugees from Haifa. They ended up in East Jerusalem in a house that was formerly owned by a Jewish person, but in 1948 they left into what became Israel inside the Green Line. The court threw the Palestinians out and gave the home back to the descendants of the Jews. But the Palestinian that got thrown out of that house in East Jerusalem isn't able to make a claim for their home inside.
Yes.
Inside.
Yeah.
Now, when people say there is no such thing as apartheid, we say, well, apartheid is when there are two systems of control for two people.
On the same land.
On the same land, and it's predicated on some sort of difference.
Yeah.
Now, it's very easy for us to think about the South in the United States, Jim Crow time, that, whites only cafes, whites only toilets, bathrooms, the same in South Africa. The reality and the delineation is exactly the same, but it isn't so visible when do you celebrate God?
This person, go on.
The fact that these residents of East Jerusalem, refugees from Haifa, lost their home legalistically, and the Israeli Supreme Court upheld the eviction notice because they had title deeds for the home from the 30s. These people have title deeds for their home from the 30s in Haifa that's currently occupied by an Israeli family, a Jewish family. The law isn't available to them because they're not Jews.
I want to hear what they think of here in Australia if we have white-only buses and white-only roads. If this is not apartheid, then we don't have apartheid.
We know it's apartheid.
I think this is all we have time for, Nasser. This
Fantastic.
is our second edition this year. And we look forward to the full team, hopefully next week.
Robert's coming back. We're looking forward to Robert joining us. And to all of our Indigenous brothers and sisters and elders, we remember this day with you. We do not celebrate Australia Day, but we remember it as Invasion Day. And one day we hope that you will enjoy the freedoms and dignity and liberty that you deserve.
With this, we've come to the end of Palestine Remembered. Thank you for being with us, and remember to tune in. 9:30, we'll be back to our time slot next week. 9:30 next Saturday. Until then, this is Nasser and Yusuf wishing you the best of time, and salam.